Hi everyone and welcome to today's session. My name is Thomas and I'm one of the IELTS teachers here at LangGo Learning System. History is one of the most tricky topics that you might encounter in the exam, and from experience I know that it frightens many candidates because, let's be honest, history is not an interesting subject for most students at school. Fortunately for you, I was a history geek at secondary school, so today, to help all of you budding historians, I'll help you overcome this difficult question in the test. I'll give you some vocabulary that you can use for this topic, as well as furnishing you with a couple of sample answers that you can analyse in your own time to hopefully improve your English. The first question asks you about your preferences regarding school subjects. Do you like learning history? If you like the subject, how could you express the feeling? Well, you could use these phrases. I'm into history. I'm a big fan of history. History is an area of interest for me. I take a keen interest in history. Besides this, you should give a brief reason as to why you like the subject, such as you like some inspirational figures. It gives you a deep understanding of the lives of previous generations. So here's an example answer from an IELTS exam. It would be fair to say that learning history is one of my main interests because it helps me to gain more knowledge about my ancestors and also helps me know more about inspirational figures from the past. Through my study of history, I feel that I am paying tribute to my ancestors in some small way. For those of you who don't enjoy learning history, and let's be honest, that's most of you, we've got the following useful phrases that you might use to talk about the subject. It's a dull or a really boring subject. Besides dislike, you might say despise, or the expression, not my cup of tea. If you can't remember anything about the subject, or you don't really understand it, you might say, it goes over my head. History goes over my head. Now, let's try and rehearse an answer for this question. Frankly, going back to my time at school, history did not catch my interest in the slightest. In fact, it was one of the subjects I despised the most. All the historical events and figures that my teachers told me about went right over my head. All in all, history is probably not my cup of tea. I'm more inclined to study scientific subjects rather than the humanities. Number 2, have you ever been to a historical museum? For this question, you should probably also divide it into 2 sections. One is someone who has been to one of these places, and the other one is someone who hasn't. If you haven't visited this kind of place, what could you say? Well, use this vocabulary. The reason why you haven't been to the place. Maybe it's tedious, and there is not many places to stroll around like in the park. For those of you who don't like ancient things, you might talk about monuments, statues and samples as strange things that you don't enjoy. Maybe you want to say that they're odd-looking things. Now, let's have a look at a sample answer for this. Number 1. Unfortunately, the museum is a place that I haven't made it a point to pay a visit to. Personally, I find it tedious to stroll around where there's just loads of old-looking stuff that I only take a quick stare at and I'm not even allowed to touch. If you've been going to these places but not remembering them, you might use the phrase down memory lane, or your recollection about the latest visit to the museum as a little bit hazy. Museums can be located far from your school, so you could say it's an off-site place. Answer 2. Well, this question really puts me on the spot because my recollection of my latest visit to a museum is a little bit hazy, if I'm honest. If my memory serves me correctly, it was an off-site visit to a museum in the suburbs, but it was a mandatory activity at school that I didn't particularly enjoy. Coming to the last question, which is a little bit more tricky than the other 2. Number 3, when was the last time you read something about history? Well, if you don't like reading books, you could say that you're a non-reader. Another phrase to say that you're bored is that you prefer to watch the grass grow. Reading books to me is like watching the grass grow or watching paint dry. Let's have a look at a demonstrated answer here. I have to admit that sitting in one place and finishing reading a book is a really hard time for me. I'm not a keen reader. I prefer oral storytelling or films rather than reading. For such an extroverted person, such as myself, reading can be like watching paint dry, really boring, and I can't even bear doing it for only an hour. And that's it, guys. I really hope that you found this session helpful in preparing you for your IELTS test. If you want to sign up for IELTS courses here at LangGo, please click on the link below. Our courses are designed with you in mind by professionals. Don't forget to show your support by the channel by hitting that like button and hit subscribe to get notifications of our latest video upload. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye.